Hey guys! Tonight, we're exploring the wonderfully bizarre world of medieval insomnia treatments. From rubbing badger fat on your feet to sleeping with a live tortoise under your bed. When counting sheep wasn't invented yet, and chamomile tea was considered revolutionary medicine, medieval people got remarkably creative with their approaches to falling asleep. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Medieval insomnia was a serious problem because artificial lighting was expensive, heating was unreliable, and comfortable beds were basically wooden planks with straw mattresses that made modern camping equipment look luxurious. When you couldn't sleep, you couldn't just turn on Netflix or scroll through your phone until exhaustion took over. You had to get creative with solutions that ranged from mildly reasonable to absolutely ridiculous. The most common medieval sleep aid was alcohol, which makes perfect sense until you realize that medieval beer was often safer to drink than water, meaning people were already slightly intoxicated most of the time. Adding more alcohol for sleep purposes created a feedback loop where insomnia was treated with substances that probably caused more sleep problems than they solved. Herbal remedies represented the sophisticated end of medieval sleep medicine, with treatments that actually contained ingredients that modern science recognizes as having mild sedative properties. Valerian root, chamomile, and lavender were commonly prescribed by medieval physicians who had stumbled onto effective treatments through trial and error rather than scientific understanding. But the really interesting medieval sleep cures were the ones that demonstrate humanity's impressive capacity for creative problem solving when faced with biological challenges. These treatments combined folk wisdom, religious beliefs, and pure desperation into remedies that would make modern doctors either laugh or cry, depending on their sense of humor. Animal-based sleep remedies were enormously popular, operating on the medieval logic that if an animal was naturally good at sleeping, consuming parts of that animal would transfer those sleeping abilities to humans. Bear fat was particularly prized for insomnia treatment because bears hibernate for months, obviously making them the ultimate sleep experts in medieval thinking. The application methods for these animal remedies were as creative as they were disgusting. Bear fat wasn't just consumed orally, it was rubbed on the temples, applied to the soles of feet, and sometimes used to grease the entire body before sleep, and a process that probably made medieval beds smell like a wilderness survival adventure gone wrong. Badger fat was another popular sleep aid because badgers burrow underground and sleep in dark, quiet environments that medieval people associated with peaceful rest. The fat was typically mixed with herbs and applied as a chest rub that was supposed to induce sleep through aromatic and tactile effects, creating bedtime routines that involved more animal products than modern veterinary clinics. Live animal remedies took the concept even further, with treatments that involved keeping certain creatures in the bedroom to promote sleep through their natural behaviors. Tortoises were particularly popular because they move slowly and sleep frequently, leading to the belief that their presence would encourage similar behavior in humans struggling with insomnia. The tortoise treatment involved placing a live tortoise under the bed or in the corner of the sleeping chamber, where its slow movements and frequent napping would supposedly create a calming atmosphere that encouraged sleep. This remedy required ongoing care and feeding of the therapeutic tortoise, creating medieval bedrooms that functioned as combination sleeping quarters and reptile habitats. Snakeskin was valued as a sleep aid because snakes shed their skin and then rest for extended periods, which medieval logic interpreted as evidence that snake products could help humans transition between waking and sleeping states. The skin was typically sewn into pillowcases or placed under mattresses to provide overnight exposure to its supposed sleep-inducing properties. Bird-based remedies focused on creatures known for their roosting behaviors, with owl feathers being particularly prized because owls are active at night but rest peacefully during daylight hours. Medieval physicians believed that owl feathers could help reverse human sleep patterns by transferring the bird's natural circadian rhythm to insomnia sufferers. The preparation of owl feather remedies involved creating sleep pillows stuffed with specific feathers from different parts of the bird, with wing feathers supposedly providing different therapeutic effects than tail feathers or down. This created a cottage industry of specialized feather collectors who supplied medieval physicians with therapeutic bird products. Mineral remedies represented the more sophisticated end of medieval sleep medicine, with treatments based on the belief that certain stones and metals possessed natural properties that could influence human sleep patterns. Lodestone, also known as magnetite, was particularly popular because its magnetic properties were seen as evidence of mysterious natural forces that could affect the human body. Lodestone therapy involved placing pieces of the magnetic stone around the sleeping area or wearing small amounts in pouches attached to nightclothes. The magnetic fields were supposed to align the body's natural energies with cosmic forces that promoted restful sleep, creating bedroom environments that resembled medieval versions of magnetic therapy spas. Silver was another popular mineral remedy based on the metal's association with the moon and nighttime activities. Silver coins were placed under pillows or worn as jewelry during sleep to harness lunar influences that supposedly regulate natural sleep cycles. This treatment had the added benefit of being relatively expensive, making it a status symbol that demonstrated wealth while allegedly improving sleep quality. Crystal therapy used various gemstones that were believed to possess specific sleep-promoting properties based on their colors, shapes, and perceived spiritual significance. Amethyst was particularly valued for insomnia treatment because its purple color was associated with twilight and the transition from day to night, making it a natural sleep aid in medieval thinking. Religious remedies combined Christian beliefs with sleep medicine, creating treatments that addressed both spiritual and physical causes of insomnia. These remedies operated on the assumption that sleep problems might be caused by spiritual unrest, demonic influences, or insufficient devotion to religious practices that maintained proper relationships with divine powers. Prayer-based sleep treatments involved reciting specific prayers or psalms before bedtime to create spiritual conditions that promoted peaceful rest. Psalm 4, which includes the verse, "In peace I will lie down and sleep," was particularly popular for insomnia treatment and was often written on parchment and placed under pillows to provide overnight spiritual protection.
Holy water was commonly used as a sleep aid through sprinkling bedding and sleeping areas with blessed water that would drive away evil spirits or negative influences that might be preventing restful sleep. This treatment created bedtime routines that resembled religious ceremonies, with elaborate purification rituals performed before attempting to sleep. Religious relics were sometimes placed in bedrooms or worn during sleep to provide spiritual protection and promote peaceful rest through divine intervention. Small pieces of saints' clothing, bone fragments, or other sacred objects were sewn into pillowcases or hung near beds to create spiritually protected sleeping environments. Dietary remedies for insomnia involved eating specific foods that were believed to possess natural sleep-promoting properties, or avoiding foods that might interfere with restful sleep. These treatments were based on medieval understanding of digestion and its relationship to sleep quality, creating complex eating schedules designed to optimize nighttime rest. lettuce was considered an excellent sleep aid because it contains natural compounds that have mild sedative effects, making this one of the few medieval remedies that modern science actually supports. However, medieval physicians recommended consuming large quantities of lettuce juice mixed with other herbs to create sleep potions that probably tasted terrible but may have been mildly effective. Poppy seeds were another dietary sleep remedy that contained actual sedative compounds, though medieval physicians didn't understand the scientific basis for their effectiveness. Poppy seed preparations were mixed into evening meals or consumed as teas that provided genuine sleep assistance through natural opiate compounds that modern medicine recognizes as effective mild sedatives. Milk-based remedies operated on the reasonable assumption that warm milk could promote relaxation and sleep, but medieval versions often included additional ingredients like honey, spices, and herbs that created complex bedtime beverages with varying degrees of effectiveness and palatability. Onion therapy for insomnia involved consuming raw onions before bedtime or placing cut onions near the sleeping area to release aromatic compounds that supposedly promoted restful sleep. This treatment created bedroom environments that smelled strongly of onions, which may have promoted sleep through sheer olfactory fatigue rather than any therapeutic properties. Physical remedies for insomnia included various forms of massage, manipulation, and positioning techniques that were designed to promote relaxation and prepare the body for sleep. These treatments represented the more practical end of medieval sleep medicine, with approaches that actually addressed physical tension and comfort issues that could interfere with rest. Head massage with aromatic oils was a popular treatment that combined physical manipulation with herbal therapy to promote relaxation and sleep. The oils typically included lavender, chamomile, and other herbs with mild sedative properties, creating treatments that provided both tactile and aromatic sleep assistance through methods that modern aerotherapy still uses. Foot rubbing remedies involved massaging the feet with various oils and ointments that were believed to affect sleep through manipulation of pressure points and circulation patterns. These treatments often included the aforementioned animal fats combined with herbs, creating foot massage routines that were both relaxing and aromatic, if not always pleasant smelling. Sleep positioning techniques included specific body arrangements that were supposed to promote restful sleep through proper alignment of natural energies and bodily humors. Medieval physicians believed that sleeping in certain positions could improve circulation, digestion, and spiritual balance while preventing nightmares and sleep disturbances. The recommended sleep positions often involved lying on the right side with specific arrangements of arms and legs that were supposed to optimize blood flow and prevent the accumulation of harmful humors that could interfere with sleep. These positioning guides created bedtime routines that resembled medieval yoga classes focused on sleep preparation. Breathing exercises were prescribed to promote relaxation and prepare the mind for sleep through controlled respiration patterns that would calm the nervous system and reduce mental agitation. These techniques actually represented sophisticated understanding of the relationship between breathing and relaxation, creating medieval meditation practices that modern sleep medicine still recognizes as effective. Environmental remedies focused on creating bedroom conditions that would promote restful sleep through control of lighting, temperature, air quality, and atmospheric influences. These treatments recognize that external factors could significantly affect sleep quality, leading to elaborate bedroom preparation routines designed to optimize sleeping conditions. Candle therapy involved burning specific types of candles made from materials that were believed to promote sleep through their aromatic and visual properties. Beeswax candles were preferred because they burned cleanly and produced pleasant scents, while candles made from animal fats were thought to transfer the sleep properties of their source animals to the bedroom environment. Candle timing and placement followed elaborate protocols that specified how long candles should burn, where they should be positioned relative to the bed, and what colors were most effective for promoting different types of sleep. These practices created bedroom lighting systems that were both functional and therapeutically designed. Incense remedies used aromatic smoke to create atmospheric conditions that promoted relaxation and sleep through olfactory stimulation of brain centers associated with rest and tranquility. The incenses typically included herbs like lavender, chamomile, and sandalwood that had genuine mild sedative properties, making this one of the more scientifically sound medieval sleep treatments. Fresh air therapy involved opening windows or sleeping outdoors during appropriate weather to provide better air circulation and reduce the stuffiness that could interfere with comfortable sleep. This treatment represented practical understanding of the relationship between air quality and sleep comfort, creating medieval camping experiences that prioritized rest over luxury. Temperature control remedies involved various methods for warming or cooling the sleeping environment to create optimal conditions for rest. These treatments ranged from simple techniques like adding or removing bedding layers to more elaborate systems involving heated stones, cooling cloths, and strategic placement of windows and doors to manage air circulation. Heated stone therapy involved warming stones in fireplaces and then wrapping them in cloth to provide sustained warmth during cold nights. The stones were placed at the foot of beds or positioned around the sleeping area to create comfortable temperature zones that promoted relaxation and prevented cold-related sleep disturbances. Cooling treatments for hot weather included techniques like dampening bed linens with cool water, placing bowls of water near beds to increase humidity and cooling through evaporation, and using fans made from feathers or fabric to create air circulation that reduced temperature and promoted comfort during warm nights. Psychological remedies for insomnia addressed mental and emotional factors that could interfere with sleep, creating medieval approaches to stress management and anxiety reduction that recognized the connection between mental state and sleep quality. These treatments combined practical psychology with spiritual guidance to address the psychological causes of insomnia. Confession and absolution were commonly prescribed for insomnia caused by guilt, anxiety, or spiritual distress that prevented peaceful rest. The belief was that unconfessed sins or unresolved spiritual issues could create mental agitation that interfered with sleep, making religious counseling an essential component of medieval sleep medicine for cases involving psychological distress. Meditation and contemplation exercises provided mental focusing techniques that helped quiet racing thoughts and reduce anxiety that could prevent sleep. These practices often involved visualizing peaceful scenes, repeating calming phrases, or focusing attention on breathing patterns that would redirect mental energy away from worries and toward relaxation. Storytelling and music therapy used entertainment to create mental conditions that promoted sleep through distraction from worries and creation of pleasant mental associations with bedtime.
Professional storytellers and musicians were sometimes employed to provide bedtime entertainment that would gradually transition listeners from wakefulness to sleep through gentle, soothing content. The storytelling approach typically involved familiar, comfortable tales told in slow, rhythmic cadences that would gradually become quieter and less engaging as listeners drifted toward sleep. These sessions created medieval equivalents of bedtime stories that served therapeutic functions while providing gentle entertainment during the transition to rest. Musical remedies included lullabies and gentle instrumental pieces performed on soft-toned instruments like flutes, harps, and simple stringed instruments that created soothing background sounds conducive to relaxation and sleep. The musical selections were chosen for their calming properties rather than entertainment value, creating therapeutic soundscapes designed specifically for sleep induction. Combination remedies represented the most elaborate medieval sleep treatments, involving multiple approaches used simultaneously to address insomnia through comprehensive therapeutic programs that combined physical, psychological, dietary, environmental, and spiritual interventions. These treatments created complex bedtime routines that could take hours to complete properly. A typical comprehensive insomnia treatment might begin with dietary preparation involving specific foods and herbal teas consumed at prescribed times before sleep. This would be followed by physical preparation, including massage, positioning exercises, and application of therapeutic oils or ointments to various parts of the body. The environmental preparation would involve arranging the sleeping area with appropriate lighting, temperature control, aromatic substances, and spiritual protection items like religious symbols or blessed objects. The psychological preparation might include prayer, meditation, confession, or other mental exercises designed to create proper spiritual and emotional conditions for sleep. The final phase would involve the actual sleep attempt using specific positioning, breathing techniques, and mental focusing exercises while surrounded by the various therapeutic substances, objects, and environmental conditions that had been carefully arranged to promote restful sleep. These comprehensive treatments represented medieval medicine at its most elaborate and systematic. The effectiveness of medieval insomnia remedies varied enormously depending on the specific treatments used and the underlying causes of individual sleep problems. Some remedies contained genuinely effective ingredients or techniques that modern medicine recognizes as valid, while others were based entirely on superstition and probably provided only placebo benefits. The herbal remedies often worked because they contained actual sedative compounds, while the environmental and physical treatments addressed real comfort and relaxation issues that could interfere with sleep. The psychological and spiritual approaches provided anxiety reduction and mental focusing that could be genuinely helpful for stress-related insomnia. However, many of the animal-based and magical remedies probably worked primarily through expectation and ritual rather than any genuine therapeutic properties. The elaborate preparation routines may have been therapeutic in themselves by creating dedicated time for relaxation and sleep preparation that helped establish better bedtime habits. The social aspects of medieval insomnia treatment also provided benefits through community support and shared attention to sleep problems that could reduce the isolation and anxiety that often accompany chronic insomnia. Having family members or community healers involved in sleep treatment created support systems that addressed both physical and emotional aspects of sleep difficulties. Modern sleep medicine recognizes that many factors can contribute to insomnia, including physical discomfort, environmental conditions, psychological stress, and poor sleep habits. Medieval treatments addressed most of these areas, even if the specific methods were sometimes bizarre or ineffective. The medieval understanding that sleep problems required comprehensive treatment involving multiple approaches actually aligns with modern sleep medicine's recognition that effective insomnia treatment often requires addressing multiple contributing factors simultaneously rather than relying on single interventions. The emphasis on creating proper bedtime routines, environmental conditions, and psychological preparation for sleep represents sophisticated understanding of sleep hygiene principles that modern medicine still recommends. Medieval people understood that falling asleep required deliberate preparation and couldn't be rushed or forced. The integration of physical, psychological, and spiritual approaches to sleep problems recognized the complex nature of rest and the multiple factors that could interfere with natural sleep patterns. This holistic approach provided comprehensive treatment that addressed the whole person rather than focusing narrowly on individual symptoms.
As we settle into our modern beds with temperature control, comfortable mattresses, and scientific understanding of sleep physiology, there's something both amusing and admirable about medieval people's determination to solve sleep problems through creative application of available resources and accumulated folk wisdom. The elaborate medieval sleep remedies demonstrate humanity's universal need for restful sleep and our willingness to try almost anything to achieve it. While some treatments were clearly ineffective, others contained genuine wisdom about relaxation, comfort, and the conditions that promote healthy sleep patterns. Tomorrow night, when we easily adjust our thermostats, take scientifically formulated sleep medications, or use modern sleep aids, we can appreciate both our advantages and the persistent human creativity that drove medieval people to rub badger fat on their feet in pursuit of the same restful sleep we still seek today. And in the peaceful darkness of our modern bedrooms, free from the need for live tortoises or magnetic stones, sleep comes with quiet gratitude for scientific progress and gentle amusement at the wonderfully bizarre lengths our ancestors went to in their eternal quest for a good night's rest.
Welcome back to our journey through the medieval mind and its fascinating mysteries. Tonight, we're exploring one of humanity's most universal yet misunderstood experiences, sleep itself, as medieval people tried to make sense of the daily miracle of consciousness fading away and mysteriously returning each morning. From theories about wandering souls and humoral imbalances, to the terrifying belief that sleep was a temporary death that might become permanent,
This is the story of how our ancestors understood the 8 hours we spend in apparent unconsciousness every single day. So settle into your most comfortable position. Perhaps reflect on the mystery of your own approaching sleep, and let me know in the comments what you find most puzzling about the experience of falling asleep, because we're about to spend the next 40 minutes discovering that medieval people found sleep just as mysterious as we do, but had some truly fascinating theories about what was actually happening. You are Master Johannes, a learned physician and natural philosopher working in Paris, circa 1380 CE, tasked with understanding and explaining the phenomenon of sleep to your students at the medical school, while also treating patients whose sleep disorders threaten their health, sanity, and spiritual well-being. Welcome to your study, where ancient medical texts compete for space with your own observations about the daily mystery that claims 1/3 of human existence. The afternoon light streams through diamond-paned windows, illuminating manuscripts filled with diagrams of sleeping bodies, charts of humoral balance, and careful notes about the relationship between sleep, health, and the soul's mysterious journey during the hours when consciousness abandons its earthly dwelling. The air carries the familiar scent of dried herbs used for sleep remedies, mixed with ink and parchment, creating an atmosphere where scientific inquiry meets supernatural mystery. The challenge of understanding sleep in medieval times goes far beyond simple curiosity about rest and recuperation. Sleep represents a daily confrontation with mortality, a temporary separation of soul from body that mirrors death itself, raising profound questions about human nature, divine design, and the fragile boundary between conscious life and unconscious dissolution that every person crosses twice daily. But here's the thing that makes sleep so troubling for medieval thinkers. It's simultaneously natural and supernatural, necessary and dangerous, restorative and potentially destructive. Every night, rational human beings voluntarily enter a state that resembles death closely enough to terrify anyone who thinks carefully about what's actually happening to consciousness, breathing, and bodily control. Your morning lectures begin with the classical theory of sleep, derived from Aristotle and refined by medieval Islamic scholars like Avicenna, who understood sleep as a cooling of the brain that temporarily disrupts the flow of animal spirits through the nervous system, creating the unconscious state that allows physical restoration while potentially opening the soul to supernatural influences and prophetic visions. The humoral theory provides the foundation for medieval sleep medicine. Sleep occurs when cold, moist humors overwhelm the hot, dry humors that maintain wakefulness, creating a temporary imbalance that shuts down conscious activity while allowing the body to process food, repair damage, and restore the proper humoral balance necessary for healthy waking function. Disruptions to this natural process cause insomnia, nightmares, and various sleep disorders. Your first patient consultation involves a merchant whose chronic insomnia has persisted for months despite various remedies attempted by local healers. The humoral analysis reveals excessive heat and dryness in his temperament, likely caused by worry about business affairs and consumption of heating foods like wine, meat, and spices that overstimulate the natural humors and prevent the cooling that allows peaceful sleep to occur naturally. The treatment protocol involves cooling remedies including lettuce, poppy extracts, and willow bark preparations that will reduce the excessive heat preventing sleep. Dietary modifications eliminate heating foods while increasing cooling vegetables and fruits. Environmental adjustments include cooler sleeping chambers and elimination of stimulating activities during evening hours when the body should naturally begin its transition towards sleep. Medieval understanding of sleep stages relies on observable changes in breathing, muscle tension, and response to external stimuli, rather than modern sleep science. Light sleep allows easy awakening and maintains some awareness of surroundings. Deep sleep involves complete unconsciousness with minimal response to noise or touch. Dream sleep features rapid eye movements and the vivid visions that provide divine communication or demonic harassment, depending on the dreamer's spiritual condition. The theological implications of sleep create ongoing debates among scholars and clergy about whether consciousness truly leaves the body during sleep or merely becomes inactive while remaining present. The soul's location during sleep affects questions about moral responsibility for dream content and the possibility of sin or virtue during unconscious states when normal rational control over thought and behavior is temporarily suspended. Your afternoon seminar explores the dangerous aspects of sleep that require careful management to prevent spiritual and physical harm. Excessive sleep leads to sloth, one of the 7 deadly sins, while insufficient sleep weakens both physical health and spiritual resistance to temptation. The proper amount varies by individual temperament, age, occupation, and spiritual needs. Sleep positions affect both health and spiritual vulnerability according to medieval theory. Sleeping on the right side aids digestion and maintains proper humoral balance. Sleeping on the back invites nightmares and demonic oppression by opening the body to supernatural influences. Sleeping face down interferes with breathing and resembles the position of the damned, making it spiritually dangerous as well as physically uncomfortable. The timing of sleep follows both natural and spiritual rhythms that medieval people carefully observed to optimize rest and minimize dangers. Evening sleep begins after compline prayers that provide spiritual protection during the vulnerable unconscious hours. Dawn awakening coincides with lauds prayers that welcome divine protection for the new day. Disruption of these rhythms through irregular sleep schedules creates both physical illness and spiritual vulnerability.
Children's sleep requires special understanding because young bodies and souls have different needs and vulnerabilities than adult sleepers. Children need more sleep for proper growth and development, but their spiritual immaturity makes them more susceptible to nightmares and supernatural harassment during unconscious hours. Parents must balance adequate rest with appropriate spiritual protection through prayers and blessed objects. Your evening consultation addresses a noble woman's concerns about her infant son's sleep patterns, which include frequent awakening, unexplained crying, and apparent fear during sleep that suggests either colic or supernatural interference with the child's rest. Medieval pediatric sleep medicine combines humoral theory with spiritual protection to address both physical and supernatural causes of childhood sleep disorders. The diagnostic process examines the infant's humoral balance, feeding schedule, and sleeping environment for physical causes of sleep disruption. Simultaneous spiritual assessment considers whether the child's baptism was properly performed, whether adequate prayers and blessings protect the sleeping area, and whether any family sins might have compromised divine protection for the household's most vulnerable member. Treatment combines gentle herbal remedies appropriate for infant physiology with increased spiritual protections, including blessed cradle decorations, protective prayers recited during bedtime routines, and consultation with clergy about any spiritual issues that might affect the child's supernatural safety during sleep. The seasonal variations in sleep patterns require adjustment of both medical treatment and spiritual practices to accommodate natural changes in daylight, temperature, and humoral balance that affect sleep quality throughout the year. Winter sleep requires more warmth and protection from cold, moist humors that can cause excessive sleepiness and melancholic dreams during the dark months. Summer sleep faces challenges from hot, dry conditions that can prevent cooling necessary for peaceful rest, while also increasing the risk of fevered dreams and spiritual visions that may represent either divine communication or demonic deception. Seasonal sleep adjustments include appropriate bedding, room temperature management, and modified prayer schedules that align spiritual protection with changing natural rhythms. The occupational hazards of different professions create specific sleep-related health concerns that require targeted medical and spiritual interventions. Scholars who engage in intensive intellectual work risk overheating their brains through excessive mental activity, leading to insomnia and fevered dreams that can progress to serious mental illness if not properly managed through cooling remedies and intellectual rest. Manual laborers face different sleep challenges related to physical exhaustion that can create imbalanced rest patterns and vulnerability to joint stiffness, muscle pain, and the spiritual dangers of excessive fatigue that weakens resistance to temptation and proper religious observance. Their sleep remedies focus on physical restoration and spiritual renewal that prepares them for another day of productive labor. Merchants and traders confront sleep disruption from travel, irregular schedules, and the anxiety about business affairs that creates the mental agitation preventing natural sleep patterns. Their treatment emphasizes calming remedies, regular prayer routines that can be maintained despite travel, and spiritual guidance about trusting divine providence rather than losing sleep over worldly concerns. The monastic sleep schedule provides the ideal model for Christian sleep practices that balance physical rest with spiritual discipline. Monks sleep after compline prayers and wake for nocturnes in the middle of the night, demonstrating that sleep can be interrupted for spiritual purposes without compromising health when proper balance is maintained between rest and religious obligation. Monastic sleep arrangements emphasize community protection through shared dormitories, where spiritual supervision prevents the isolation that makes individual sleepers vulnerable to demonic attack or sinful dreams. The communal approach to sleep creates mutual accountability and protection that exemplifies ideal Christian sleep practices for lay people who must adapt monastic principles to their domestic circumstances. Your research into sleep disorders includes the terrifying condition of nightmare oppression, where sleepers experience crushing weight on their chests, inability to move or speak, and overwhelming fear that suggests demonic attack during the vulnerable unconscious state. The medical explanation involves humoral imbalance creating physical symptoms, while the spiritual explanation focuses on supernatural harassment requiring religious intervention. Treatment for nightmare oppression combines medical remedies that restore proper humoral balance with spiritual protections, including exorcism prayers, blessed amulets, and religious counseling that addresses any spiritual vulnerabilities that might have invited demonic harassment. The dual approach recognizes that sleep disorders can have both natural and supernatural causes that require comprehensive treatment addressing both physical and spiritual health. The relationship between diet and sleep quality receives careful attention in medieval medicine because food directly affects humoral balance and the body's ability to achieve the cooling necessary for peaceful rest. Heavy meals before sleep create excessive heat that prevents natural cooling, while insufficient nutrition can cause restless sleep and vulnerability to illness that affects both physical and spiritual well-being. Specific foods promote healthy sleep through their cooling and moistening properties. Lettuce, milk, and certain herbs help establish the humoral conditions conducive to rest. Wine, in moderation, aids sleep by providing gentle warmth that helps transition from waking to sleeping states. But excessive alcohol creates heating that disrupts natural sleep patterns and increases vulnerability to nightmares and spiritual attack.
The sleeping environment requires careful attention to factors that affect both physical comfort and spiritual safety during the vulnerable unconscious hours. Proper bedding provides warmth without overheating, while room ventilation maintains air quality without creating drafts that could cause illness. Spiritual protections include blessed objects, protective prayers, and positioning that maintains appropriate relationship with sacred directions and religious symbols. Your evening lecture explores the philosophical implications of sleep consciousness that challenge medieval understanding of personal identity and rational soul function. If consciousness defines human nature, what happens to personal identity during unconsciousness? Does the soul remain present but inactive, or does it temporarily separate from the body in ways that prefigure death and final separation? The Aristotelian position holds that the rational soul remains present during sleep, but loses its active function due to physical changes in brain temperature and humoral balance. The Platonic alternative suggests that sleep allows the soul partial separation from bodily constraints, enabling access to divine knowledge through dreams and visions that would be impossible during normal waking consciousness constrained by physical senses. These philosophical differences affect practical medical treatment because they determine whether sleep disorders represent primarily physical problems requiring medical intervention or spiritual problems requiring religious treatment. Most medieval physicians adopt a combined approach that addresses both physical and spiritual aspects of sleep disturbance without resolving the underlying philosophical tensions about consciousness and soul function. The gender differences in medieval sleep theory reflect broader assumptions about male and female physiology and spiritual vulnerability. Women's naturally cooler, moister temperament makes them more prone to excessive sleep and the spiritual dangers of sloth, while their emotional nature increases susceptibility to nightmares and supernatural harassment. Men's hotter, drier temperament create different sleep challenges related to insomnia and the physical exhaustion that can compromise spiritual vigilance during waking hours. Treatment protocols adjust for these perceived gender differences in sleep patterns and vulnerabilities. Women receive warming remedies to counteract excessive coldness that leads to oversleeping, along with spiritual guidance about maintaining appropriate prayer schedules despite natural tendencies toward extended rest. Men receive cooling remedies for insomnia caused by excessive heat, plus spiritual counseling about accepting rest as divine gift rather than evidence of weakness that conflicts with masculine ideals of constant activity. Age-related changes in sleep patterns require different approaches throughout the human lifespan. Children need extensive sleep for proper growth, but their spiritual immaturity requires careful protection from nightmare harassment. Adults balance sleep needs with occupational and religious obligations that may require modified rest schedules. Elderly people experience changing sleep patterns that may represent natural preparation for death or spiritual evolution that requires sensitive medical and religious guidance.
Your consultation with an elderly monk addresses his concern about decreasing sleep needs and increasing tendency toward early morning awakening that disrupts the community schedule. The medical explanation involves natural cooling of the aging body that requires less sleep, while the spiritual interpretation suggests divine preparation for final transition from earthly life to eternal rest that makes extensive unconsciousness unnecessary. The treatment approach emphasizes adaptation rather than restoration of youthful sleep patterns. Modified prayer schedules accommodate early awakening while maintaining community participation. Gentle herbal remedies provide comfort without artificially extending sleep beyond what his aging body naturally requires. Spiritual counseling addresses anxiety about changing patterns while affirming the spiritual significance of preparing for eternal rest. The relationship between sleep and death creates ongoing theological discussion about whether sleep represents temporary death or merely resembles death superficially. The similarity between sleeping and dead bodies, unconsciousness, physical stillness, reduced breathing, and heart rate, suggests that sleep might literally be partial death that could become permanent if divine protection fails or spiritual preparation proves inadequate. This theological uncertainty affects practical sleep practices through emphasis on bedtime prayers that prepare for possible death during sleep and morning prayers that express gratitude for consciousness restored through divine mercy. The daily cycle of sleeping and waking becomes a rehearsal for death and resurrection that requires appropriate spiritual preparation and recognition of human dependence on divine grace for continued existence. The medical treatment of chronic insomnia involves comprehensive assessment of physical, emotional, and spiritual factors that might prevent natural sleep.
Physical causes include humoral imbalance, dietary problems, and environmental factors that interfere with cooling necessary for rest. Emotional causes involve anxiety, grief, or anger that create mental agitation, preventing peaceful sleep. Spiritual causes include unconfessed sin, demonic harassment, or divine discipline that requires religious rather than medical intervention. Your treatment of a nobleman's persistent insomnia demonstrates the comprehensive approach required for complex sleep disorders that involve multiple contributing factors. Medical remedies address humoral imbalance through cooling herbs and dietary modification. Counseling addresses anxiety about political affairs and family responsibilities. Spiritual guidance explores possible sins requiring confession and penance that might be preventing divine blessing on his sleep and rest. The integration of medical and spiritual treatment reflects medieval understanding that human health requires harmony between body and soul that cannot be achieved through purely physical remedies. Sleep disorders often indicate broader problems in the patient's relationship with God, community, and natural order that require comprehensive treatment addressing all aspects of human existence and spiritual well-being.
Seasonal sleep festivals and religious observances acknowledge the spiritual significance of sleep cycles and their connection to agricultural, liturgical, and cosmic rhythms. Advent and Lent involve modified sleep schedules that increase prayer time and spiritual vigilance. Harvest festivals celebrate the completion of agricultural cycles that allow increased rest after periods of intensive labor and community effort. These religious observances related to sleep demonstrate medieval understanding that rest is not merely individual physical necessity, but community spiritual practice that connects human rhythms with divine order and natural cycles. Proper sleep observance contributes to social harmony and spiritual health that benefits entire communities through individual participation in cosmic order. Your final research involves documenting cases where sleep disturbance preceded major illness, spiritual crisis, or death, suggesting that sleep patterns provide diagnostic information about overall health and spiritual condition that extends beyond immediate physical symptoms. Changes in sleep quality or duration may indicate developing problems that require prompt attention before they progress to serious complications. The diagnostic value of sleep observation requires careful documentation of patterns that might reveal underlying physical or spiritual problems requiring treatment. Sudden changes in sleep behavior, new nightmare patterns, or unexplained sleep disturbance may indicate illness, spiritual attack, or divine warning that requires immediate investigation and appropriate medical or religious intervention to prevent serious consequences. As your day's work in sleep medicine concludes, the pattern emerges clearly that medieval people understood sleep as far more complex and significant than modern readers might expect. Sleep was not merely rest, but daily encounter with mortality, divinity, and the mysterious boundaries of human consciousness that required careful management for both physical health and spiritual safety. The sophistication of medieval sleep theory demonstrates serious intellectual engagement with questions about consciousness, identity, and the relationship between body and soul that remain relevant for understanding human nature and the daily mystery of consciousness temporarily surrendering control to unconscious processes that restore, refresh, and potentially transform the sleeping person. Your medical and philosophical investigations of sleep contribute to broader understanding of human nature as beings who exist at the intersection of physical and spiritual reality, requiring daily surrender of conscious control in trust that divine providence will restore consciousness and continue the gift of life through another day. As evening approaches and your own sleep draws near, the medieval understanding of sleep as sacred mystery, requiring proper preparation and spiritual protection, provides perspective on the daily miracle that modern people often take for granted: the reliable return of consciousness after hours of apparent death that proves human dependence on divine grace for continued existence and restored awareness. Tonight, as you prepare for your own journey into unconsciousness, the medieval theories about sleep offer both comfort and appropriate caution about the daily mystery that claims 1/3 of human existence while providing the rest and restoration necessary for physical health and spiritual growth. The gentle evening light fades over medieval Paris as scholars and physicians complete their daily investigations into the mystery of sleep that continues to challenge human understanding despite centuries of careful observation and theoretical development by the most learned minds of medieval civilization. And in the peaceful medieval night, where sleep is understood as daily rehearsal for death and resurrection, we can rest knowing that our ancestors recognized the profound mystery of consciousness and its temporary surrender to unconscious processes that restore both body and soul through the divine gift of peaceful rest. The eternal questions about consciousness, identity, and the nature of sleep continue to challenge human understanding, but medieval theories provide valuable perspective on the daily miracle that connects all humanity through shared experience of consciousness fading and mysteriously returning with each cycle of sleep and waking. Tonight, as both medieval and modern minds surrender to sleep's mystery, the night holds the gentle promise that consciousness will return with dawn, restored and refreshed through processes that remain as mysterious now as they were to our ancestors who understood sleep as daily proof of divine mercy and human dependence on grace that sustains life through unconscious hours. And as peaceful sleep comes to both the investigators and those who benefit from their wisdom, the quiet darkness preserves the ancient understanding that sleep is sacred time when consciousness rests in divine care and bodies restore themselves through processes that demonstrate the ongoing miracle of human existence, sustained by forces beyond conscious understanding or control. The medieval night holds its sleepers gently, preserving the wisdom that rest requires both physical preparation and spiritual protection, and that the daily surrender of consciousness represents humanity's fundamental dependence on divine providence for the gift of life renewed through unconscious restoration that makes each morning a small resurrection and renewed opportunity for grateful living.